Hey, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mo Love Podcast, Honest Conversations with Mo. Glad to be back. Glad to be back at it. As I, mentioned, you know, the key is consistency. So, consistently wanting to do this, but glad to be back. Glad to be back. And before we get started into this episode, I want to say, of course, happy Easter to everybody out there. Hope you all are enjoying time with your friends and family and, enjoying this beautiful weather outside. If you do have beautiful weather outside, wherever you're listening. Um, but yeah, so I'll go ahead and get right into it for this one. Kind of want to get started with this one um, and diving into what does work look like for you. And in that, I mean, what does not necessarily what is it that you do as far as, what you do to, make money, make an honest living. Not necessarily what does that look like for you. Me more so in terms of how are you able to distinguish the work that you do from who you are. Um, and I think sometimes we have trouble in distinguishing those two things in terms of the work we do and who we are as a whole. And sometimes we kind of mix up the two and kind of utilize one to define the other, where we feel as if once we figure out what it is we want to do, growing up, hey, what is it? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I think that's where the confusion and where the lines kind of get a bit blurred, and that what what you do for work is not you. It's not all of you in a sense. So, and I think that's what I kind of want to dive into. So, speaking for myself, what is it that I do? So, I work in the sports and entertainment world as a marketer, as a event executive. So, just understanding, my work involves, being around a lot of people, creating moments, creating experiences for people. Um, but understanding that that isn't all that, that defines me. And I think that is important too to understand is with our work and what we do and what does actual work and working on ourselves look like for us. Um, so I kind of want to, I guess for this is kind of figure out what is it that we're doing, or even for myself, what is it that I'm doing to distinguish the work that I do from who I am as a person. And I think that kind of starts with the type of work we're doing at home. How what type of homework almost are we kind of doing on ourselves, and creating that time to create those necessary boundaries, those necessary, distinctions of the work we do and who we are and the work we're doing on ourselves. And I think sometimes we don't really factor that in or take that into account in terms of the necessary work we have to do on ourselves to kind of get better. We feel it kind of will naturally happen. So what's funny, yesterday, at the journaling class I go to, Strokes of Freedom. But yesterday the question, obviously we always have our several different journaling prompts, but the journaling prompt that stood out to me is, what what did I think would get easier, or and I think that was the prompt that stood out to me, because I think we kind of, how I spoke on is how we have this tough time to distinguish ease and easier. Um, Easier almost, you know, automatically leads to, wanting to take a shortcut. Um, Versus ease is putting in the effort and putting in that time to create that easy way of life, or not necessarily easy way of life, because life isn't necessarily easy, and I'll kind of get into that as well, but more so ease in the sense of where we're not stressing, or we're not necessarily looking for those shortcuts. We're not looking for that easy way out. um, so and I think when we're doing the work on ourselves and really separating who we are from our workplaces, um, is tough, because I think growing up we almost felt like, hey, once we find that job that we're supposed to do, or that career path that we're supposed to have, that it'll naturally come easier. Life will naturally kind of figure itself out. Um, but no, it requires, the thing about ease, it requires constant work, and constant work on yourself, and constantly figuring out yourself. And I think that's why it's important to kind of do that homework on yourself every day. And for example, for myself, how I do that homework is finding, kind of, almost, I've been getting back into figuring out the things that I, truly enjoy, the things I truly like. Um, and then also just doing something productive for me. And I think making myself, kind of that priority as well, has been essential too, in terms of how am I figuring out and navigating, all aspects of myself, and learning myself in that regard. Um, so that's just some of the work I've kind of been doing on myself. So I kind of want to pose this more so as a question to, you all as listeners, is, what kind of work are you doing on yourself, and do you feel like you're able to separate your work from your purpose? And I think sometimes we convolute and confuse our purpose with our work that we do, as I mentioned, for a living. And I think when we're able to distinguish the two is when we're able to kind of almost create that ease, because now we're able to distinguish the two. And although it'll never be easier, because as I said, it requires that continuous work, it also requires wanting to show up for yourself, wanting to kind of be there for yourself at all times, and how you're doing this work. And I think when we're working on ourselves, it's easy to almost look for that, that easy path, that easy way out. Whether it is that escapism of finding something to latch onto, whether that is in our work, in what we do. But it's also important to find those necessarily outlets for yourself too, and finding those outlets that aren't defined in the work you do, or aren't related to, you know, making, making money. Although, making money is important in this world, and it is vital, but I think it's necessary that we, in the work we do on ourselves, that we don't get caught up in finding finding or looking to necessarily gain value, but I think just finding the value in it. I think we're all always, looking for something that makes things later down the line a bit easier. But we also got to be patient with ourselves and finding the value add in everything we do, in every kind of moment we embark in. And I think it's necessary to kind of almost take a step back in knowing that, hey, we'll be just fine in terms of everything else, because everything else will kind of, take shape and take place. But it's important to kind of put in that work for all of that to seem almost at ease, to be at ease. I think, you know, almost, understanding that it's Easter today, and, sometimes it's tough for us to kind of let go and, let God in a sense as well. So I think when we look at our lives, in terms of how we're doing the necessary work to better ourselves, how are we also letting go? And that kind of leads me into my next thoughts as far as wanting to dive into this, and how are we getting comfortable with losing? And because losing is natural, losing happens all the time. And I think sometimes we struggle with dealing with loss, and not necessarily loss in terms of losing, loss in the sense of losing parts of ourselves, although that'll naturally happen as well. But I think loss in the sense of actually just taking the L, where you're not always going to come out on top. You're not always going to be the winner. At the end of the day, with anything, there's only one Super Bowl champion at the end of every year. There's only, one NBA Finals champion. There's only one country that wins the most, Olympic gold medals. It's only one Olympian that takes home the most golds. So understanding that it won't always be you taking home the gold, and being comfortable and accepting, losing, is vital too in our overall growth and how we choose to grow as individuals, and kind of the work we do too. Understanding that every day is not going to be the same, the same day, if we, in the sense of not being the same day where you're not going to win the same every day, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. You're not, like I said, you're not always going to win. Every day is going to be picture perfect. So I think even in the work we do and how we're comfortable with learning to lose, and it's hard. Trust me, it's hard to lose, or wanting to lose, or feeling like you are losing. But understanding that to get better and to get a better understanding of yourself, that losing has to not necessarily become second nature, because we don't want to, I guess, almost feel like we're losers or becoming losers. But I think accepting loss has to become second nature, accepting that you're not always gonna come out on top, and accepting that you're, that's gonna happen. And from that, I think, in accepting that losing is gonna happen, it's important also to count our wins. And being someone who does a terrible job of counting their wins myself, I think it's just as important as being able to accept losing, to being able to accept those small wins. Because even in a loss, there are wins. I think finding those small wins and finding the ways that you did win to help make that next time almost feel like a more grander victory than a more defeating loss is important and crucial as well, because and I say this even for myself as I sit here, is because if I can't accept winning on any aspect, it always feels like I'm naturally losing, or am I building this losing mentality and not, this winner's mindset, and knowing that, a win is going to come, later on down the line. It's just more of a matter of, hey, putting in the work to learn the lessons from these different losses, um, and being able to know next time how to truly win. And sometimes we struggle with truly winning because we're so caught up in the loss, that the win almost feels that when we almost get used to winning, it almost feels like a defeat because we're looking for those, that loss. We're looking for that way that we're beating ourselves up to where, getting caught up in self defeat, and we're not being authentic to ourselves because we've gotten comfortable with losing. We haven't really made ourselves kind of that priority to where we're bettering ourselves and becoming, better versions of ourselves, and really trusting ourselves. And I think that's why it's important when we're counting all our wins, and getting comfortable with losing, that we accept that winning, that a winning mindset is an everyday mindset, that you got to find, and that's in that, and I say that in the sense of, yes, as I mentioned, we're not going to win every day, but a winning mindset is an everyday mindset because you got to find those wins every day. And it's important to find those wins every day, or otherwise you're just gonna continuously build that loser mindset and that loser mentality, to where self-defeat, and really putting up this wall of comfortability in losing, um, is only gonna hurt, not only hurt yourself in the long run, but hurt your mentality, hurt your thoughts, and hurt the reality and the life that you're trying to live. And it hurts the work that you want to do, the work that you want to create. So that's why it's important to be comfortable with losing, but also counting your wins, because you don't want to be constantly content with losing. I think sometimes we get comfortable with losing because we feel like, oh, losing is all we'll ever know. But no, you'll eventually get your win. But when that win does come, have you built that winner's mentality, that winner's mindset, from all your losses? Did you learn those lessons from all your different losses, all your different, the different defeats that we suffer, throughout life? And, are we working through that, and are we becoming better because of that? And are we challenging our losses? Are we saying, hey, here's what we could have done better, and accepting our role in the loss, and then also accepting our role in the winning too, and accepting how we did win, that it wasn't a total loss. There was something that we took away from this, that moving forward, we know that we've become better. We've learned something about ourselves that we had no clue that we needed to learn about ourselves in that time, that this loss was needed, but that doesn't make us a loser. And I think that's vital and important too, especially in the work that, like I said, the type of work we're doing at home. Because as we're growing up and as we continue to grow, we get lost in that, doing that work. So I think it's vital to continuously do that work on yourself. Not knowing that, your work isn't all that you are, knowing that you are going to lose and being comfortable with losing. And just counting your wins, man. It's important to count your wins. I know, like I said, I have a tough time counting my wins. And I did kind of almost have that kind of, the where my mentality, where I felt, defeated all the time, where I felt kind of the world was, beating down on me. And I didn't know how to kind of get back up. But I had to really kind of work through that. And I continued to work through that, do that work where I had to separate, uh, kind of, as I mentioned, what I do from, you know, who I am. Understanding that I think my ultimate dreams always, always been to, be a sports agent, and the capacity in which it looks like these days isn't what I initially idealized or I envisioned. Um, growing up, but understanding that, hey, at the end of the day, I've always been, a sports agent, or been an agent in a sense, the whole time, where it's just now, like I said, it just looks differently, my agency and me being an agent, uh, looks different, being an agent for myself, being an agent for others, completely looks different. So, and, I kind of had to learn that, had to, kind of work through that and kind of separate those two distinctions. And then what kind of work am I doing on myself to be a better agent for myself, and be a better agent for others, in all aspects, all relationships that I have, in my life. And then before, kind of wrapping this topic up of, the concept of work and the concept of, getting comfortable with losing and counting your wins, is just knowing that as we're continuously, in our, as we continuously, engage in our daily lives and the work that we do, are we, I guess I challenge you all to kind of ask yourself the question, am I doing work that excites me? And I mean that in the sense of, are you doing the work that excites you at your core? Not necessarily are you doing the work because we all, need to find that value and, doing work that uplifts us, but necessarily are you doing work that excites you at your core? Because I say I tell you, I get you to ask yourself that question, because I feel like it's important to do things that excites us and do the work that excites us, but are we doing that work on ourselves too? Because I think that's the thing that we struggle to distinguish, is as far as, yeah, are we doing work that excites us for, monetary gain, but are we also doing work that excites us on ourselves? Are we doing the activities that make us feel good about ourselves? Are we surrounding ourselves with the right people that make us feel good about ourselves? And are we challenging, you know, those ideas? And are those the things that are causing our losses? And are we not, really finding the necessary wins? So I guess, challenge you all to kind of figure that out, for yourselves. And that, I guess I'll move on to what's felt like such a jam-packed, uh, sports, overall couple of weeks in sports. I guess I'll start off with, of course, the NCAA and, the men's Final Four, as well as an exciting, incredible, what has been an incredible uh, women's March Madness tournament, or women's college basketball tournament as well as the men's college basketball tournament. Um, and today, uh, we've been able to see, I think it's currently going on. I have to check the score of the Duke NC State game. Obviously, we're rooting for State. But we do have out of our other regions, we do have the teams that will be heading to the Final Four. So Purdue will be headed to Phoenix, and they'll obviously be awaiting the winner of NC State versus Duke. And then we also have the 4 seed Alabama going up against your defending national champion UConn Huskies. And that should be a interesting battle. Bama's been a incredible team, fun to watch on this run. I think State's been exciting if State's able to pull it out against Duke. Purdue, Zach Edey, he's been an incredible force, dominating force. And then UConn just, continue to uh, build on this, this winning legacy that they're kind of establishing here in, college basketball and being kind of that dominant blue blood as they always are, and continuing that run. And I guess out of these 6 teams, since we don't officially have the State Duke pick, I'm gonna go with they produce just kind of, but State's been magical. I'm gonna go, I think State continues their magical run, and then I'm going State, UConn, and then UConn for the national championship. And then on the women's side, we've got our final. Well, we know thus far we have NC State. Speaking of State, continuing their magical run on both sides of the men's and women's tournament, going up against South Carolina. So we'll see State versus South Carolina. And then still awaiting the results of USC versus UConn. Juju, excited to see Juju. I think Juju versus Page, that should be a fun matchup. LSU versus Iowa, still waiting those results. Angel Flauget versus Caitlin. Oh man, it should be fun. I'm going LSU on that one. USC upsetting UConn. Juju, she's a one-woman machine, and she's cooking. She's going to continue doing her thing. And then, can you really beat Dawn and her girls? So I think State's run on the women's side ends. I think USC, those Gamecocks, the Lady Gamecocks. And then I think they'll go up against, I think it'll be the rematch. SC versus, don't know. Wait, what is it? How's this bracket? Let me double confirm, because I think the bracket changes on that side. So let's see here. So on the women's side of the bracket, so it will be SC versus UConn versus USC. The winner plays LSU versus Iowa. Once South Carolina wins, I think we're gonna get an SC battle, because I think LSU's gonna beat Iowa. Caitlin Clark's run is gonna be over. Juju's gonna upset UConn, but I think I got Juju beating UConn. It's gonna be tough because it's Juju by herself versus LSU, Angel, and all her girls, Flauget, and the rest of that team over LSU and the Lady Tigers. But I think it's Juju's magical run, but that magical run is gonna end against the Lady Gamecocks. So I got both SCs in the final four, national championship game. But I think Juju's run is gonna, sadly, I don't think it's her year this year. I think she's got next year to get a better team. But I think Dawn Dawn continues that run, continues that magical dominating run of winning at SC. So speaking of winning, yeah, I think Dawn's going to continue to count her wins. So I see that being the end result of the Final Four, and it should be fun. Speaking of Final Four, I'll actually be headed out there. I'm excited for that, for the men's Final Four in Phoenix. I'm excited. It should be fun. Yeah, speaking, I guess that's kind of why I wanted to touch on this topic of kind of separating work and kind of what we do at home, because I'll be on the go, pretty much gone all of April. So it's, and we'll kind of that. But before we dive deep into that, the NBA playoffs, of course, is on the horizon. My Lakers are still the ninth seed. We had a brief, short 5-game win streak that was ended yesterday in our loss to the Pacers. The playoffs should be interesting as the season narrows down. Yeah, we're gonna see. I don't know if we'll be able to get past that 6 seed or get into the top six now as the Lakers, but can we win two playing games? I think we can. I think we've shown that we're a very capable team. We just got to come in and night out and play like we're a capable team and show up and show out, and see if we can, continue to make another magical Western Conference playoff run and be, finals run. Maybe out of the realm of possibility, but I'm not counting this out. We got LeBron, we got AD. I trust those two guys. As long as the other guys show up, it should be fun and we should be fine. The next NFL free agency, it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, my Falcons, we got our quarterback. We got Kirk Cousins. I think when I started to see that rumor swirling around, I figured it was inevitable that Kirk was going to be our quarterback. It was interesting to see the remainder of our free agency moves that we made. Necessarily focused on the offensive end, mainly receivers, where we got Darnell Mooney traded for Rondale Moore, picked up Ray McLeod. I think we signed an offensive lineman. So I think this is looking to gear up to be maybe a very defensive heavy draft for us, for the Falcons. So that should be fun to watch. Or will we continue to, add on the offensive side of the ball? I don't think we solidified that second receiver spot. I do like the receiver additions in Mooney, Ray McLeod, and Rondale Moore, but I feel like those guys are more kind of vertical threats, kind of guys that, take up space. They're not, I don't think we've found a capable number two in those guys. So maybe we still go, receiver in the draft. Definitely, defensively, need an edge rusher, need linebackers, and another corner, maybe safety as well. But yeah, maybe looking to be a very defensive oriented draft for my Falcons. And then overall, just in free agency across the league, really seeing with the cap going as much as it did, like a lot of teams really just made the necessary moves for their teams. I noticed that, like, the Texans went in on really surrounding the right pieces and building a real strong team for CJ moving forward. A couple other major winners I noticed. Actually, there really wasn't really too many like clear cut winners. I think this is the type of free agency that, like I said, teams are making the moves that they needed, and it won't really translate till we, come the regular season and we see those pieces come together. I don't think it's like past off seasons where you notice like a clear cut winner. Um, I think I will say the Steelers made incredible moves. The Texans made impeccable moves. The Titans, in terms of figuring out, kind of where they are in their rebuild, they made great moves. So yeah, it was a lot of teams. Like even the Panthers made some solid moves. The Bucks re-signing, Baker and Mike Evans were great moves. The Chiefs losing Ladarius Sneed, it was tough, but it kind of had to happen to be able to, keep guys like Chris Jones. Yeah, it's gonna be another interesting season coming up ahead. It was interesting free agency. Obviously, it's gonna be interesting seeing Saquon in a Eagles jersey now. Derrick Henry with the Ravens is gonna be fun. So there's a lot of teams making a lot of different pieces, a lot of you know names that, especially at the running back position, because of how the running back market kind of just played out. So it's gonna be fun heading into next season and how that's gonna impact the draft. Yeah, moving forward. So that's gonna be fun. And now I want to get into a new segment that I have and want to, kind of want to get started. And this segment is kind of my new segment. New segment alert, new segment alert. Kind of a book review. And to start off this first new, this first book review, I want to dive deep. If you can see, maybe you can, maybe you can't. If you're watching the video version of the pod, but yeah, Agent U by Nicole Lynn. And I wanted to review this book because to kind of talk about, I think it was the perfect book, or yeah, to kind of dive into this topic of being able to separate work and um, doing your work, being able to separate your work life and your home life, or being able to separate your work and you in totality. And Nicole Lynn does a incredible job in kind of deep diving into those aspects of yourself, as well as touching on being the agent of you. She talks about kind of her overall journey of being, a female sports agent, world renowned agent at that, from her from her journey of trying to get on the scene in the sports industry, to eventually, landing Quentin Williams as a top 3 pick, and being, the first female sports agent to do that. But then also, how does she advocate for others to kind of be their own agent themselves and be your own sports agent in a sense. I think this book does an incredible job on that, and it kind of propelled and allowed me to kind of speak on the topic of being, comfortable with losing. And Nicole does an impeccable job of speaking on those topics of being comfortable with losing. She gives a lot of writing prompts to kind of a lot of writing exercises to kind of challenge you to continue to work and continue to work on bettering yourself. And it's an incredible book. So I'll definitely recommend checking out Agent U by Nicole Lynn. Um, and now we'll get into the top 4. Um, favorite album. I'll start off. What have I kind of been listening to? What's been my favorite album or song of late? Um, hmm. I've kind of been listening to a lot of different sounds. I don't know if there's been a distinct album that's kind of stood out as of late, but I've been listening to a lot of my kind of my favorites. My most recently kind of played playlist kind of been heavy on that. We're listening to that. Favorite show to watch currently. What have I been watching currently that I've enjoyed? Oh, back to BMF is back out, so I've been watching BMF. What else have I been watching? Resident Alien. Back on watching Resident Alien. Um, I've been trying to get into The Bear. Been slowly getting into The Bear. It's a good show. It's just kind of like a slow burn. It is real good. Just like I said, it's a real slow burn for me. Um, and then what other shows do I love watching currently? I guess also been watching, of course, been watching my pods. No Chill Gill, Gil's Arena, of course, Nightcap, all of, my favorite pods. Been watching a lot of stand up comedy, a lot of different acts. It's been fun watching that. And then what do I currently have going on? Like I said, just planning and prepping mentally for this long April that I have ahead to look forward to. Recently, received a promotion also at work. So excited to that process, and it'll kind of be coinciding with this long kind of month of April and kind of adjusting to that. So it's a lot of changes, a lot of new changes, a lot of exciting changes, a lot of kind of happening, a lot going on. In that sense, I'll be traveling to so many different places over these next couple weeks, and then just what am I gonna learn for myself over these next couple weeks, where I will be diving deep into my work, but also how will I be doing work on myself over these next few weeks as well on the road. So I'm excited be back on the road, be traveling to a number of places, as I mentioned earlier, Final Four for Phoenix. I'll be heading to down for the Masters, Boston Marathon. And then what am I looking forward to? Lastly, what am I looking forward to? My PTO trip, my 30th birthday trip to Turks and Caicos that I have planned. I'm excited for that. But yeah, I'm just really, obviously looking forward to getting through these next couple of weeks of work and getting to that PTO trip. So, but knowing that I gotta, put the work in to eventually, take it one day at a time and be patient with myself. Not rush to jump in instantly to, I just want to, get to my trip, but also know the work to get there, the work that I have to do for, these events that I have going on as well, and really being, diligent and patient with myself in that regard. So I'm excited for these next couple of weeks, next couple of months, just overall, um, in this new role. So it's gonna be exciting. So I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a bit challenging in the sense of adjusting to new, um, and then it's gonna be fun to adjust to new and understanding that counting my wins throughout, you know this adjustment, but also, understanding that it won't be easy, and, it'll be good days and it'll be bad days, and it'll be days where, I'll lose, and it'll be days I know also that I'm going to come out on top and I'm going to win as well. So I'm just excited. And as always, I just say, appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen. I know this was a very all over the place kind of pod today, but I just want to dive deep into, just a bit about, how we can all win, uh, where we're continuously winning, but to continuously win, we have to be willing to accept the losses too. So, yeah, be mindful of the losses, but just don't let the losses define you. Don't get caught up in the losses. And yeah, just continue to work on yourself. Don't define yourself to the work that you do. And as always, I appreciate you all for listening. Have a good one. And until the next time, peace.